Yeah, that helps.
Hello, Denise. It's so nice to have you here as a guest on Fast to Heal Stories. As we were
Hello.
talking, yeah, hello. It's so nice to have you here. As we were talking a little bit before we started recording, these are my favorite interviews, the success stories, and people just love to hear from other people. And I can't wait to hear your story. I know we've been in touch over the months, the last several months, and following your progress. And you're always a really active member in my support group and asking questions and, letting us know what your progress is. And that's just so helpful. So I think when, people have questions, there's gotta be someone else out there wondering the same thing. So
The same exact question.
yeah,
Exactly.
for sure. So we're going to learn about your story, how you got here, and your whole journey along the way, and where you're at now as opposed to where you started. So let's get started with just give us a real quick, backstory, a little bit about your struggles and how you got to where you are, how you found me, and how you got going with my programs or services that helped you out.
Well, sure. Well, I am just so you know who I am and what I do. I am a film producer. I'm also a licensed attorney, but don't tell anybody that. I don't want to lose my reputation, what little I have. And my husband is a cinematographer and also a film writer, and we write together, we work together. I came across your information, came across you on Instagram. The way I or where was I when I did this? My husband is getting treatment at the Mayo Clinic for metastasized prostate cancer. I was in the waiting room for one of a billion, procedures or scans that he was getting, and came across your guide, and it just seemed to, it made sense. It's a topic that I think a lot of people struggle with, obviously, and so I got the guide. I can't remember exactly what was in the purchase, but I'm like, I'm gonna do this. And I actually did follow through and listened to a lot of the segments. I don't think I've listened to all of them, but I think I've listened to most of them. Really, really insightful. I think I mentioned in some of my postings on in the chat room on Facebook that I have read Dr. Fung's book, The Obesity Code. And my husband and I were referred to that book by another physician at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Kaiser Lim.
Okay.
And he said, this is the definitive book. And this doctor had actually looked up every single study in the book to verify that it was accurate. Now that's someone who's
Wow.
very,
Yeah, because
yeah,
there's hundreds
that's
that
determined.
are in that book. Yeah.
And so I went ahead and I got the book, I read it, and it made sense. I tried to follow the guidelines in there. I tried doing some fasting, just failed miserably. Failed miserably. I'm sure that he had all of the same information that you've been sharing, but if he did, it wasn't communicated in exactly the same way that you do. You're much more affable. You're much more just down to earth. He's very academic.
Yes.
In fact, he spends a good portion of the book proving each of his points over and over and over again. Here's another study that'll tell you, why it's perfect, why it's healthy to eat, animal fats and lots of protein. And here's another study that'll show you that. And so I think, and then I went ahead and I got like he has, cookbooks and recipe books and meal plan books and all of these other things. And I just couldn't do it. I would fast and then I would panic and I would, overeat. And I just wasn't getting it. And so I think, I'm just so happy that I happened to come across your postings on Instagram. God bless the algorithms that brought me to you. I don't know how I came across you. I mean, it seems like the internet knows what I want more than I do. It knows me better than I know myself.
Scary, isn't it?
It is. It is. And so, really, in a nutshell, I think just it's like the little pieces that you offer make it so much easier to digest, no pun intended, so much easier to follow. And the biggest, some of the biggest hurdles for me have been okay, I just had a meal and then I'm hungry 30 minutes later. I'm starving 30 minutes later. And finally, you provided the answer for that. And I have been struggling with that. I mean, this goes way before, the Dr. Fung book. I mean, I wish I had known that 30 years ago. I didn't know
Me
that.
too. Me too.
Yes. And just, and all of myths around you have to, load up on carbs the day before a marathon or the day before a big ride or before a workout. I mean, I just, I've had nothing but problems trying to figure out that balance. And it's just made life so much easier. And that's not to say that this has become a cakewalk. It's still hard. I still struggle with, okay, I've had my meal now at 6 p.m. or 6:30. And now it's 8. And now I kind of want something to eat. Okay, it's 9. I kind of want something to eat. So that's probably where I'm struggling the most and not even the in between, because I'm so full from my first meal today. I don't want to eat. But yeah, it's after dinner.
Yeah.
And then I have done a 24-hour fast and it really wasn't a big deal. Not a big deal at all. I was terrified to do it. And it's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal.
I know, it's so mental. It's 24-hour fasts are so mental. Like people can usually do 18, 20, no problem, but it's just, oh, that 24-hour fast.
Oh my God, I might die. No, you're not going to die. And then when you really begin to understand how you get into ketosis, and then you think that's the most healing part of all of this. That's what my body really, really needs. Another thing I've been encountering is just a lot of negative feedback from people who are ignorant of the facts behind fasting and strategic timed eating. And I just find that can be really draining. Have enough. I mean, it's hard enough to just, to stay positive and focused and do the right thing. But then now I have to debate somebody, who's sending me pictures of someone who has an obvious eating disorder and who's anorexic and needs to be admitted to the hospital. And now I have to defend myself against that. It's like, no, I don't need that. And so I just don't think I'm going to tell anybody anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's such a difference between a low insulin lifestyle and a calorie restricted lifestyle. They're completely different. One is a hormonal model, one is a caloric model.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people think they're somewhat intertwined, but they're the same thing. It's like, we're just fasting for caloric restriction. It's like, no, we are fasting because, like you said, it's healing for our body. It helps us recover not only our insulin hormone, but once we can recover that hormone and balance that, it balances all the rest of our hormones, or a lot of them that are associated with insulin resistance. So I know, and it's so funny because, all the studies I've read, the people I've helped, the people who've gone through my programs, I get daily emails and messages from people, which is amazing. And it's like, I'm not teaching rocket science. I'm just teaching the truth with how our bodies work hormonally with different macronutrients. But sometimes I read posts and I'm like, am I teaching the right, it's like, should I really be teaching these fasting methods to women? And it's like, no, our body innately knows how to fast. We just don't want to overdo it. And you're so right. It's like people who lack the education behind why we're fasting and how we then feed ourselves coming out of the fast. That's where most people go wrong. And I think, that's where, and like you said, Dr. Fung's book is very medical, very study heavy, which is great because you need that. But the
It's very
practical
academic.
nutrition, the practical nutrition is where, that's where I really like to focus. It's because people can fast. It's like, okay, I know I don't eat. It's like, but what do I do when I need to eat and when I need to go out to eat, when I need to be with my family? And so that's what a lot of what is focused on in my programs is just how to bring those two things together, the fast and the feast, so that you can live a life. And like you said, sometimes you just don't even want to tell people about the fasting component, but just focusing in on the low insulin lifestyle and encompassing that. So I love the story and how it is funny how people find me. Like people are like, I just found you on Instagram, and like they'll say, I don't know how, but it is. It's like Instagram has those crazy algorithms. So if you're following somebody who's similar content to mine, or the hashtags are, it's just crazy. But yeah, we'll say it's a
I
blessing.
can't even figure out how the can opener works. I for sure I'm not going to be able to figure out how yeah, Instagram works.
Right. So let's kind of walk through the steps of how, how you applied things. And I do want to clarify for listeners that you went through Finding Nutritional Peace, which is my highest
Yes.
level program,
Yes.
which is all about reversing insulin resistance. And some people do it on their own with just the content, which is what you did. And some people go through a kind of live coaching with me. So you can do it either way. But some people just love to watch the videos on their own and digest it and apply it. And others
Mm-hmm.
really love the coaching part of it. So so you went through Finding Nutritional Peace. And like you said, there's now about 35 lessons in there, but it's not something you want to just go through in a week. Like it's just like
No.
you just grab little nuggets and work on applying those little by little. But that first phase is kind of the preparation phase where you're really just learning to slowly start bringing that insulin level down so that you can go longer periods of time with fasting, with going, without food. So what did you do for that kind of prepping period where, you're starting to change the nutrition and you're starting to think about going longer periods of time without eating?
Well, I think I'm not sure that I'm a poster child for how to do this because I overthink things, maybe I underthink them, but I started by purchasing some ready-made meals. Was it Factor 5 that I got, or we've gone through several, I think you had mentioned one for a while, and we tried those, and then we just weren't eating them. We were like throwing out way
Yeah.
more than we were consuming. And so then I tried, okay, I'm just going to prepare my own, we'll prepare our own food. And that seemed to work better. And when I really drilled down into, okay, what does 125 grams of protein really look like? Like, what does that really look like? For me, that was the key. And then understanding that, okay, I need to eat fiber first. Okay, well, what's fiber? Okay, so that would be the vegetables, that any foods that are high in fiber, eat that first. Then have your protein. And then if you have room in the tank, finish it off with some carbohydrates, and don't feel too guilty about it. So if it's like a little bit of, mashed potato, you know, it's okay. you've explained earlier that, you've eaten foods before that, which provide a buffer. So you're not necessarily going to get an insulin spike if you have some carbs at the end, a little bit of rice. And so it kind of, I went through maybe a couple months of, getting the prepared foods. And I wasn't, I just felt like I was more in control if I was making the food myself. And it might not work for everybody, but I think it's really important to understand, okay, what does fiber look like? Okay, what does protein look like? How much do I really need? And I don't think people really understand how it can be hard to get enough protein.
Yeah.
And then you may not like certain kinds of protein. Like I cannot eat enough chicken. I can't have more than a couple bites of chicken. It's like, no, unless it's like the kind that you shouldn't eat, which is out of the bucket at KFC, which is coated in the carbs and fried, I can't have a full chicken breast. I can't do it. I
Mhm.
can't do it. And so I had to like figure out, okay, what do I like? I really like eggs. I like eggs, all the way. And so I like protein shakes. And so I will get really healthy protein made from, is it casein? CA, is that it?
Yep.
Or whey. So
Yep.
I try to get, whole foods, nothing processed or as little processing as possible. I'll supplement it with just raw eggs. And I will have minimum like 50, 60 grams of protein in my morning, in my shake, which
Yep.
I'll do at noon or maybe 12:30, 1 o'clock. And then I'll put, some spinach in there. I'll maybe put in a banana. Well, I will put in a banana, a little bit of peanut butter, maybe no peanut butter, but I really enjoy that. And I feel so full after
Mhm.
that. I can't eat anything until 6. And even then I probably could do a 24-hour fast after that. I'm that full.
That's how I feel when I really focus on getting at least 50 grams of protein. It's like, and sometimes I'll eat even earlier between 10 and 11 thinking, okay, then I'll be hungry for dinner. And it's like
Yes,
5 or 6 rolls around and I'm still like, wow, I haven't eaten
I'm
since
not hungry.
30. And I still, like you, I could take or leave dinner. And usually I choose to eat at least some dinner. My family's there. And then if my family's not around or we have activities, then I'm just like, I don't need to eat. I'm not hungry. Like I don't.
No, I
Yeah.
remember, and I don't know if you remember this, but as a kid, I was a very, very skinny kid. I mean, healthy. My mother was constantly worried because I wasn't eating.
Mhm.
I was very, very healthy. She was constantly dragging me to doctors because she'd say, she isn't eating, she isn't eating. Well, I wasn't hungry.
Yeah.
And the doctor would say, when she's hungry, she'll eat. She knows when she's hungry. And so I think just as it was just natural where I would go for a day without eating, I just wasn't hungry.
Right.
And I think that is just our natural state to just listen to ourselves. And I think gradually, through the 80s and 90s, culture says, well, you have to eat breakfast. It's the most important meal of the day. Well, then you have to have 3 meals a day. Oh, and then you should be snacking throughout the day because you need to, you know, always be having a little something, always be eating. And that is just absolute, worst advice. And so I think I really got out of touch with, am I hungry? I don't know. I don't think I've been hungry, for decades because I think I was just, it gets programmed out of you. And instead you're running by a different paradigm instead of really listening to yourself and knowing yourself, and you lose confidence because you're getting all of these conflicting messages. And so, it's just been, I'm just trying to highlight how frustrating it's been and what a relief it's been to hear your message, hear your voice. It's very calming. And I feel like, I can be back to where I really need to be, probably by Christmas, maybe in the new year, maybe by spring. But I think my body naturally needs to be in the 120s, like weight wise. I think that's just normal. I
Mhm.
don't think that would be underweight for me at all,
Right.
at
Yep.
all. And even though my BMI is normal, I just think I would, you know, I think I would feel better. I'm already off of Linzess. Don't need it.
Yeah. That's
I
amazing.
absolutely don't need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And you're talking about, how our culture has changed. And now we're telling everyone that we need to eat right when we get up and we need to eat throughout the day. Our mothers, and my last success story guest too is the same way. She's like, I have to keep telling my mother, her mom was like in her 80s, like, I don't need to eat all the time. Like, I'm not hungry. And her mom was panicking because she's not eating 3 meals a day. But not only that, but we just had a huge shift from what we were eating at our first meal of the day. We went from bacon and eggs and
yes,
breakfast meats to ultra processed dessert, basically.
yes,
And that
cake.
just drives our insulin levels up right away at the start of the day, puts us on a blood sugar roller coaster and makes us hungry. I mean, it truly does. So if you can
Yes.
just nail that first meal and reframe your mind to think, I need to have more protein than carbohydrates in my first meal, especially, you're just going to follow suit with that level blood sugar throughout the day.
In high school, in college, I would have cereal the first thing in the day, usually a sugary cereal, but carbs nonetheless. I would be hungry way before the, appropriate lunchtime. So I would go run to my locker and eat
Mm-hmm.
lunch. And then I'd eat again at the actual lunchtime because I'm like, well, it's lunchtime, so I have to eat again. And so, yeah, I mean, I was over 200 pounds
Oh, wow.
easily,
Yeah.
in college. I stopped weighing myself.
Yeah.
And it really is. I know that there have to be so many other people out there who are having the same struggles.
Yeah.
Just incidentally, this balance between hearing anecdotal stories and accepting the fact that that can usually be more persuasive, um, and data or analysis based on data and statistics. There's a great interview of Neil deGrasse Tyson that just came out on Sam Harris's podcast. And Neil deGrasse Tyson talks a lot about statistics and data and in terms of how we make our decisions. And it's really useful because in the present case, it's both anecdotal and the actual statistics support exactly what you're saying. And my point here is also that we so easily allow an anecdote. Well, I heard from Bob. Bob, was eating 8 meals a day and he lost 80 pounds, so then the story about Bob winds up derailing everything that that you just learned. And so it's really important to understand the importance of statistics and probability in policy and in making decisions in your life. And so if anybody is like on the fence, like, oh no, I'm just going to go with, anecdotes. Like, what did Mary do? Like, oh, I heard, she told me a story about, if anybody's on the fence about that, they really should listen to the interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson or read his book. Because yeah, you have to go with where the facts are, what does the data suggest, and this is just this works, yeah, you can starve yourself and you will lose weight, but you'll gain it all back and
Mm-hmm.
then some.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so,
I mean, basically calories are a measurement of heat. Your body, I mean, yeah, I'm not saying calories don't matter at all, but it's like your body recognizes nutrients and macronutrients, and the satiety centers are basically, you know, quieted by protein and fat and fiber. So I mean, it's just gotta be not only the fasting, I mean, that's important, but then the nutrition part is absolutely just what really flips the switch and allows your body to go hours. I mean, when you first started fasting, you're probably hungry all the time because your insulin levels were high and it was.
yes.
So
Now
how did you start? Like, yeah, let's talk about your fasting protocol and where you got started with that.
yeah. Well, I mean, before I tell you about that, both Bill and I did we sent in our blood tests to the So Well
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
group.
yeah.
So we're waiting our results.
Yeah. And Bill's your husband?
Bill's my husband.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, and he's lost, Bill, how much have you lost?
About 40.
40 pounds.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I love it. I love when it just trickles into other family members. It's my favorite.
He looks really good. He looks really good. And he is, um, yeah, I mean, and he's way more stubborn than I am. And so, he's really, the person you should be talking to, but
We'll
he
do
doesn't want to be on camera.
another.
But so yeah, so we've got those tests and those results should be coming in. But I'm sure it will bear out that, we are both to a great degree still insulin resistant. And so, yeah, initially it was hard. I mean, I was white knuckling it, eating salt, like, sitting there and like eating salt and what else was I doing? Bone broth and chicken broth. I'm like, oh my God, watching the clock, sweating, like, oh my God, I'm never gonna make it. So, and then I think it was, I'm not sure exactly the timing of this, but it's when I learned about the order in which you eat your foods. I think that really turned the corner for me. And recognizing that, if I don't like turkey, I can't eat more than like a little bit of turkey. I can't eat more than a little bit of chicken. That's okay.
Yeah.
I can, whatever protein is working for me is what works for me, and that's perfectly fine. And so, yeah, so that made the difference. And, understanding that those foods release, whatever the hormone is that makes you feel full and sated, and the other one that makes you, carbohydrates, which release the hormone which makes you feel hungry. And I was basically shooting myself in the foot over and over again by breaking my fast with carbohydrates.
Yeah. Yep. And that's where so many people like fasting doesn't work for me. Fasting doesn't work for me either they, and I'm not saying fasting's a end all be all for everybody. And there's certainly different protocols that are appropriate for different people. But when you've only have tried to apply fasting and your insulin levels are high, it's
Ain't gonna work.
an absolute disaster. And not only that, but trying to fast too much too soon or whatever it is, it's going to be a challenge. And like you said, if meal orders off or you're having too many carbohydrates and maybe you make it through that fast, but then you're spiking that insulin level and you're kind of defeating the whole purpose of fasting. So there's just a lot of little pieces that need to come together. And when they click like they do for you, it's like
doing this too.
okay, so she's holding up berberine for those who are
Yes.
listening and not watching the video.
So
And
maybe this is helping.
did you feel a difference when you started that? Or, some people have told me, oh my gosh, that's game changing. Like I could tell right away. And others, it's just more of a subtle thing.
I think it's more mental for me. Like, okay, I'm really doing everything I need to be doing. I'm doing my best. It tastes a heck of a lot better than apple cider vinegar, a shot of apple cider vinegar.
Yeah. Vinegar is tough for a lot of people. And honestly, I don't do a lot of vinegar in my drinks. I just in my dressing. Like if I'm going to eat a salad, it's got vinegar in it. And that's how I get my vinegar in. Well,
Okay.
I'm starting to break my fast. So yeah, because it's like, okay, if it tasted like sugar, that'd be easy, but
Hey, why not?
oh,
I think I think people should know that it's okay if you don't like certain kinds of protein, that is perfectly fine. And you're not crazy if you don't feel like eating a big piece of steak. If that's not for you,
yeah,
fine. Find what works for you. Find whatever protein you really like.
yeah,
There's got to be one out there, and yeah, and so just, be nice to yourself and say, I'm going to eat what I like
yeah,
because it's me,
yeah,
it's not anybody else. You can eat what you want, but I'm going to eat what I want.
yeah.
We found a salad that we just love. It's just cherry tomatoes and cilantro and cucumbers and chickpeas and olive oil and salt and pepper, and that's it. And we could just like eat a whole barrel of it, like just bring up the trough. And we both, eat a ton of that and feel great. And then we'll have, a steak or, whatever. And we feel really, really full.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an important point for women because I know I've talked about this before, but I did not eat red meat for decade, like probably 10 years. Like I was afraid, but I've always loved, like I love hamburgers. I love steak. Some
Mhm.
people don't like red meat and that's okay.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about how saturated fat being harmful and driving heart disease has been debunked over and over on this podcast.
Yes.
Enough that people aren't afraid of it. But some people just don't like it and that's okay. And we eat a lot of venison in our house too, because we have
Yes.
hunters, but that is my choice. Like if I'm going out to a restaurant, I'm usually ordering beef over chicken or turkey. I do like chicken. Turkey's okay in my opinion, but yeah,
Tough to eat a lot of it.
yeah. And honestly, I haven't had a guest on with the blood type diet, but I read that book and I've done some research into that. And I think there is some merit to that as well. And it's like, I look at my blood type and all the foods that fit for my blood type. And I'm like, I love all of those foods. And the ones that are not in my blood, I'm like, no, those like give me gastrointestinal issues or whatever. I mean, that's kind of going down a rabbit hole, but I think it's like you said, you need to listen to your body and not force things just because they work for another person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I was going to say, focusing on whole foods and avoiding processed. I'm really lucky. I live really close to a grocery store that, focuses on whole foods, almost like fascists, I mean, like, oh my God, if there's anything processed within a mile of the store, they're going to have a hissy fit, but it's great. And they deliver. And so it just makes the shopping easier. And so I'm able to get, healthy meat, healthy fish, and, and don't have to worry about, the processed stuff really will make you sick. If you are away from it for a while and you eat it again, if you have an Oscar Mayer hot dog, you're going to get sick.
I haven't had one in so many, I don't even, it's like, I forget that those things even exist sometimes. That I'm like, oh yeah, Oscar Mayer bologna or hot dogs, yuck.
Well, I will say that I indulged, and I think it's been a couple weeks, we were down in Rochester, and we broke our fast at this great restaurant called the Purple Goat. And of course, we had the beautiful salad and, topped with shrimp, and it was great. And I'm like, oh, I really want that dessert. I'm like, I'm going to just blow it. I'm just going to blow it and I'm going to do it. And so it was fried pound cake made to look like French fries in a little fryer basket with, it's like a strawberry jam that was made to look like tomato, like ketchup. It was the most delicious thing I think I've had. And I was sick all night and the next day. And it's like, okay, I don't need to do that again.
Yeah.
It really was painful. So, it is interesting how your body will go, please don't do that. Please don't eat that amount of sugar.
Yep. And when you're having those constant bombardments, you don't really know how good you feel until you break away from it. And then you have a little bit and you're like, ooh, wow, that's why I don't eat like that again. And yeah, I mean, it's fine to, like you said, it's fine to do that sometimes, but it's almost good that you have consequences now. Cause it's like, okay, well, that's why I don't do that. Cause if you didn't have consequences or you didn't know how much better you could feel, I think that make it more difficult to stay away from those things and just keep them to every once in a while things.
Speaking of that, are you going to put up some suggestions for recipes for Thanksgiving? Because I'm thinking to myself, I love pumpkin pie. It's probably, I would kill an innocent child for a piece of pumpkin pie. And so I'm thinking, what are we going to do? I'm hosting Thanksgiving here. What do I do?
Yeah, because I will, so when does this air? This airs right before Thanksgiving, like a couple days. So there will be a few things on Instagram for recipes and that sort of thing. And I know for me, for desserts, my daughter is making a gluten-free dessert that I'll share. Because I have always, we've been gluten-free for years. And then there are a couple of places that you can order like these little mini cheesecakes that are clean, if you don't want
Oh,
your own. So, but yeah, I mean, this comes out a little bit late. People will probably be into more of their meal planning, but even for Christmas, I mean, when I'm looking for recipes, I just Google like clean keto, clean paleo, and then whatever it is I'm looking for. So like
mhm.
plain paleo pumpkin pie or whatever it is.
Sure, sure,
If you're willing to make your own, and a lot of people are, because you want to know exactly what's going into it so that you can,
sure.
but yeah, and then when I assign, because I always post Thanksgiving here, I always assign things and say, this is what I want you to do. Here's your recipe. And
Mhm.
just so I know that people are going to feel well that way, and I'm going to feel well. So, because we have probably 4 people in our family who are gluten sensitive. So I'm like, you know what?
Yeah,
We're doing gluten-free and we're doing whole food mostly. And those people who don't, then there's some things that they can decide
yeah.
to, eat themselves. So, but yeah, we'll do a little bit of that for sure. Where are you at? What's your fasting protocol now? Because I know people are like, okay, and we don't want to copy everybody, but
No,
where did you start and where are you at now? And then as far as, kind of, not that it's all about weight loss, but, kind of clue us in on, how much weight you've lost, and
mhm.
if you've had to change your protocol to continue to see progress, or if it's just been kind of a continual process
Sure.
for you.
So let's see. I think I started at a little over maybe like 153. It's basically where I was when I started this. Now I'm at 136. I started with would it be 18-hour fasts? So I would stop eating at 6 and then pick up 18 hours later. So that would be like noon.
Mhm.
Um, and it was, that was before I figured out meal order or, in what order I eat the food. And I was really white knuckling it. Then the weight really started to come off once I figured out meal order and kind of got through, the sweats and the panic of the first part. And started figuring out what food do I really like and what don't I like. And so now I'm at 136. And I stop eating. I'd like to stop eating at 8, but I will be honest, I am probably stopping at 9. I'll have like one of the desserts, like a made with flax, ground flaxseed and protein powder. And so I'll have something clean, like a clean bar, a protein bar that tastes like dessert, but it's really not. Maybe there's a little bit of honey in it for sweetness, and that's it. And chia seeds and something like that. So even though I'd like to stop by 8 o'clock, if not sooner, I'm having something around like 8:30, quarter to 9. And then I will have my first meal at noon. So I'll get up and I'll have coffee and water and start taking medications and so forth. And then I'll have my first meal at noon, 12:30, something like that. I don't really, it's getting so much easier. Sometimes I won't even eat until 2. Like I wait, oh God, I haven't eaten
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'll have a dinner around 6. And that's kind of been and then I did a 24-hour. I think we did it when we were down in Rochester. And because in the hotel there's no room service. So it's like, well,
Yeah.
that's easier.
Yeah.
No vending machines, no nothing, nothing to cheat with. But so yeah, so it's pretty much been that every single day. I'm thinking about doing like 1 24-hour fast per week to see if that can shake it up.
Mm-hmm.
I have not toyed with 3 meals a day. I just don't know how that would work for me.
Yeah.
If anything, I might have my dinner later, like maybe
Yeah.
have my dinner at 7. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a couple I mean, you could try shifting your whole window earlier, like having a late morning meal and then cutting your window off earlier and just doing that once or twice a week just to shift the timing and then get a little bit longer fast in at night. You could try that. And then adding in 1 24-hour fast sometimes too is game changing for a lot of people when they've kind of done that 18-6 for a long time. And we're coming up on Christmas now, so maybe for the next 6 weeks, your goal is more just maintaining and not progress, depending on where you're at. We can, people can certainly push through and lose weight from Thanksgiving to Christmas. There's no reason you can't, but sometimes it's just like stress levels get in the way. Your day-to-day is different.
Let me tell you, I am in the highest tier of stress with my life. And that's for a whole different podcast. But, and so, people need to know I am not, living some kind of, princess and the pea lifestyle. We have a lot of stress.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that this is helping manage that, because I don't have to worry about food and as much. I'd say it's only helped me to put things in order and to feel more in control. Because I think if most people, well, I shouldn't say most people, but one of the things that I struggle with is like, okay, I need to feel like I'm in control. I need to feel like I'm in control. And this really does a great deal to benefit that anxiety and to put that to rest. I sleep better. And it's good. Like when you're having a lot of health challenges, or if your spouse or partner is having a lot of health challenges, to know that you're doing the absolute right thing. I mean, my husband is in the battle for his life, and this is doing nothing but helping him. Nothing but helping him. And he is on a billion medications. And his doctors are absolutely aware of everything that he's doing, and they think it's great.
Awesome.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes they push. They're like, nope. For cancer, you do radiation and you do chemo. And if you push against that, a lot of times you get a lot of negative feedback. So, and I mean, I was listening to a podcast. I don't want to go off topic too much, where about fasting and cancer, and like in Germany and some European countries and some hospitals, it's like you have to be in ketosis in order to get your treatment, like to get your chemo treatment, to get your radiation treatment. Highly suggested that you fast at least 24 hours before your treatment, if not 36. And then another 20 hours.
Why do you think you fast before major procedures? And, of course. And one thing I was going to ask you about, I'm sort of a fan of that show, My 600-Pound Life.
Yeah, I get sucked into that really bad.
I just love it. And I'm wondering why I think his name is now Zarden, why doesn't he just have these folks go into immediate fasting? Why are they eating? They have enough energy to live.
I'm like, I wish I could be the dietitian that works with him.
Yeah.
I will say I've noticed a little bit of a shift, at least in their diet in the last 5 years. Like when you watch really old episodes, he's really calorically, he emphasized no more than 1,200 calorie diet. That's basically what he says, where now at least it's high protein that he is focusing on. But yeah, the fasting and the mealtime,
you don't need to eat.
Not really focused on. And I think that, their insulin levels are so high when they're first starting that it's nearly impossible. But even just like, if he would just, let's start with 12 hours of fasting and go there, but yes, I agree that there's so much that could be done. And then I think, okay, well, sometimes these people are losing 100 pounds before surgery. Why won't you just keep going with what you're doing? Why would you go
What's
and
the point of the surgery?
why are you rearranging
Yeah.
your anatomy then at that point? You know what you need to do to get the
Yes.
weight off. You know, I understand it's very, very mental when you're at 600 pounds, but I
Or
agree.
more.
And it's like, but I have seen a few shifts in that show with the nutritional approaches, and it is higher protein now, at least. So, but yeah, that's interesting. So yeah, so you and your husband are down collectively almost 60 pounds.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is doing nothing but helping with cancer treatments. And,
Yes.
you know, chemo radiation is just utilized so much better when the cells are
Yes.
regulated from being in a fasted state, being in ketosis. The cancer cells can't replicate off of ketone bodies like they would with sugar. So yeah, that is super important. And you guys are doing amazing things. So for you, other than weight, have you, and you know, just like you said, knowledge is it's empowering. You're
Yes.
feeling
Yes.
like you're in control of your eating, and that's huge. I mean,
Massive.
probably in this about the same age range as I am. And it's like I've thought about
29,
food. Yeah, exactly.
30.
Well, my daughter's almost 20, so I can't really say that anymore. But like, you know, I have wasted so much time thinking about what I'm going to be eating for my next meal and what it's going to do to my body. And is it going to cause me to gain weight? Is it, you know, it's like the last 3 years, 3+ years that I've had of food freedom, not thinking about food. Oh my goodness, that has been the biggest dream come true. So what
Yeah.
other things have you seen in your life?
I think it's just self-esteem.
Hmm.
And that's a big one. Really just feeling good about yourself. That helps. You know, if I'm sure, you know, I'm not alone. I'm always struggling with self-esteem despite the cheery exterior. And it just feels so good. Clothes feel different. Just also seeing that number on the scale, it's like, oh my God, I have not seen that number. I mean, you know, even the scale said, whoa, you know, I mean, I don't think I've been there since maybe I was 13.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was the last time. Maybe 13, 14 was the last time I was in the 130s.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And it's like people just think as you age, as you go through perimenopause and menopause, you're going to gain weight. Like that's just what's going to happen. And I tell you, especially on Instagram, it's really interesting. I am getting more and more women in like their 50s, 60s, and 70s
Mhm.
who are reaching out. And I think a lot of it is they're just learning how to use social media, and they find me there, and they're so thankful they have some ray of hope. But you know, they've just been stuck in the same, you know, the traditional weight loss crapola system of calorie
Yeah.
restriction that, and it works. They're like in their 60s and 70s and losing weight, and it's amazing. And I
Yes.
don't know that I have anyone in their 80s, because I think at that point you're just kind of like, but I do have a lot of like older clientele who are coming in and doing fantastic. So you don't have to gain weight as you age.
Also, my current goal is to incorporate regular exercise like I used to. I used to work out regularly 4 or 5 times at least, you know, a week. And just because of life, I have not been able to do that. And so, but I do think the times where I did seem to take off weight the most were the times when I was exercising.
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't like, I'll be honest, I don't like to exercise. I love to complain while I'm exercising. So if I'm going to exercise, I would love to have an exercise partner so we can complain together. Otherwise, what's the point, right? But so I think that's that's the next tier. So I've got my snowshoes and all of my gear ready to go right here. And I'm gonna head out with the dog who's sleeping right now next to me. And I'll see, you know, how that impacts everything.
Yeah.
It would be a
And
positive impact.
yeah. And just again, changing our whole thought process around exercise and doing it because it feels good and we like it, not because we have to go and sweat a bucket at the gym. I mean, we don't
No,
have to go to HIIT classes and
no,
lift weights for 2 hours and get all sweaty. It's like we can just go for a walk and
yes,
maybe use a few light weights while we're watching TV. And that can be enough to maintain our muscle mass as we age. And that along with eating enough protein is game changing. So yeah, it's just getting just the whole thought process and getting it all to click together is so amazing. So we talked a little bit, we'll close out here, but we talked a little bit about sleep and stress. That's kind of the last step. And that you have a high amount of stress right now, and that intermittent fasting has eased that a little bit, and just
yes,
feeling like the food order and knowing what to eat, having some targets, and once you hit those targets, feeling better and knowing that the process works, I think is so empowering. But anything else that you want to say around the sleep and stress issue, or
yes,
anything that
yes.
helps you in those regards?
I will just say I'm 50. So even though I look, 24, 25. And let me see, how many years ago is this now? 3 years ago, I went to a new doctor and she said, well, tell me about, how you're feeling, this and that. And I said, well, I'm tired all the time. Um, I'm hungry all the time. And so she's looking through my medications and she said, Denise, why are you on a birth control pill that's appropriate for a 12-year-old girl?
Not even a 12-year-old girl, but
Not
yeah.
even, and I said, what? And she said, yeah, you're on a level that, a 12-year-old would be at. I'm like, I had no idea. Long story short, she put me on the patch. And oh my God, I have never felt so amazing. Now, this predates my learning about you and starting this, but the two together have just made a world of a difference in terms of my energy, in terms of my ability to sleep, in terms of my being amenable to different kinds of changes, making changes. And so making these changes in my diet, it's, I just think I'm more open to it. Being a woman, you're in the mood sexually way more, which is a huge, oh my, thank the Lord. I was never in the mood. In fact, I was like, ugh, I don't want to. And so, any women out there who are having these feelings, like, I feel tired. I feel like the gas tank just fell off. I mean, I used to go to CrossFit and I just couldn't move. Be like,
Yeah.
I don't know what's wrong with me. So I was, going to the doctor and be like, I'm tired. I don't know what it is. And that has made all the difference. And so
What
it's
hormones,
called
I was
Elaine.
gonna say, what hormones are in there? Because I know people are going to be like, is it estrogen? Is it progesterone? Is it testosterone?
Both.
A little bit of everything. Okay.
It's both. I think it's estrogen. I mean, I could run upstairs and get it, but the name of it is Xulane, Xulane. At least that's the company, or that's the brand, Xulane. And it's a patch, and I put it on every week, and it's amazing. They
Yeah.
call it the sex patch because I'm like, I could hump a tree right now. Like, this is amazing.
It's got to have some testosterone in there, I would think.
Oh, 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 oh. And yeah, and you feel so much better. And and we deserve to feel
Yes.
as great as we can. We deserve it. We
Yeah.
deserve it.
Yeah.
And so I highly recommend it. I just feel like it's, who knows if it's just a coincidence, but I think the two work together
Yeah.
to overall put your brain in balance, those chemicals, and getting the insulin levels down
Mhm.
has really helped. So I can't wait to get those test results. I'll share them with you when I do. I'll share Bill's results too. It'll be interesting to see
Yeah.
what's going on, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. That, like you said, those hormones it's just all powerful. the insulin
Everything.
resistance, you fix that and you feel better, your weight starts to come off. But yeah, you got to fix, and that will naturally start to sync up those female sex hormones as well. But yeah, as we age and those sex hormones are declining, there is no reason why we can't replenish them and feel good as we go through
Exactly. Now
menopause.
that assumes that you don't smoke,
Yeah.
or, and I don't smoke, I never have. So there are risks to using the patch if you smoke. So smoking is a no-no, and drinking, I don't do either. So I'm pretty boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've never felt better. I wish I would have known about that years ago, because I probably blew at least 10, 15 years with hormone levels way too low.
I know. And it's like, you don't know what you don't know. And at least you know now, and you can feel good
Yeah.
moving forward for sure.
Yeah.
So any last little tips or advice that you have for listeners who's maybe are just starting to listen to the podcast or getting into the lifestyle, things that really helped you along the way?
Keeping an open mind. And, if you blow it on one day, it's not the end of the world. Start again. Just start again and reread the material and, change up the game a little bit and see what happens. And you don't have to build Rome in a day or in a week or in a month, but just little by little, and just be happy with any bit of progress that you make, and don't be devastated if you don't make any progress. It's not the end of the world. It really isn't. Just keep trying.
Right. Tomorrow's a new day, and
Accept the
everything.
fact that you don't know everything. You don't know everything.
I don't know everything, that's for sure. I learn more and more.
No.
Like the whole food order thing has been more in the last 6 months that I've learned how absolutely game changing that can be for people with blood sugar regulation and getting through your fast. So yeah, you're always learning new things and applying them.
I'm going to
And
get a t-shirt that says leptin and, ghrelin,
yeah,
and like, the battle. I mean, that really, it's like, oh, there's like an explanation, there's a chemical that's released. Okay. I get it. So just accept that you don't know everything. You're going to change your mind. You're going to learn new things. It's a process. It's a journey. Just, be kind to yourself, and just keep an open mind.
yeah, I changed my entire practice from what I learned, and I'm like, I can't teach this old stuff anymore. It's not doing anybody any good. So yeah, that's great advice. And yeah, it's just take it day by day. Every day is different depending on your hormones too. So it's like what you could do yesterday is not exactly what you're going to be able to do today. There's just so many variables, especially for women with hormonal fluctuations and stress and sleep and exercise and so many things. So, well, we really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, Denise. It's been a great hour. I'm so glad you found me. Like you
Me
said, it's like
too.
you're sitting in the clinic waiting room one day, and now you're on a podcast a few months later.
Stardom at the
It's
top of the hill, the top of the heap. No, my goal, I just want to look as, I mean, you just look amazing. You could model. So I just, like, that's my goal. I want to look as good in jeans as you do. That's my goal.
thank you. Yeah, it's like I don't lie about my age ever. I'm like, I'm 46. I'm almost 47. Like, I have a 20-year-old daughter, almost 20-year-old daughter. I can't really say I don't care anymore. I don't like age is just doesn't I don't even care how old I am anymore. Yeah, like you said, you just want to feel good and feel good about what you're doing from day to day and your energy level, and be a good role model for your kids too. That's so huge. And I talk about this a lot too. It's like women in our 40s, 50s, your kids are going to pick up on everything that you're doing, and they can apply this and they don't have to struggle, and then they teach their kids, and it's just so huge. I feel like we're kind of just flipping all the damage that's been done in the last 100 years or so, and getting back to those basics. So
Well, it's, I know we're wrapping it up, but there was a great interview done. I think it was with Barry Weiss recently, where the American Diabetes Association is, they're coming out with, recommendations for like daily diet, which are absolutely insane. And, you're going to get, I mean, it's shameful, but they're lobbyists who from the, sugar farmers and wheat farmers and, the ones who will have the most benefit from, the processed food industries. They're paying them millions and millions of dollars to make totally ridiculous suggestions as to how much, in carbohydrates you should be eating every day. And like, it's fat free. So therefore it's really healthy. And it's endorsed by the American Diabetes Association. And the fact is, this stuff is going to kill you. It's going to kill you.
They're all cahoots when it all comes down to money, unfortunately. It doesn't come down to
and you really have to, I mean, this stuff is this is life and death. And because I'm involved hand in hand with my husband in this life and death battle, this means a lot. I mean, and you really have to dig in and do the homework and do the research and find out what the facts are. And I really appreciate what you're doing and by carrying that mission forward.
Thank you. I would be willing to bet it was the American Heart Association, because the American Diabetes Association has actually made some strides, because the president is a type 2 diabetic himself, and low carb has really turned his disease process around. Or her disease. So but the American Heart Association is still
it was the American Heart Association.
way back in, still 50 years ago. Nothing
You're in the Stone Age.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, we appreciate you telling your story. We wish you the best and your husband the best. And hopefully we can maybe interview him too, since he's done so well, and let him share his story. So yeah, tell everybody about.
I like him way better than you like me. He's much more entertaining. He's much better interviewed than I am.
We'll work on him. We'll work on getting him on the show. But thank you so much for sharing your story, and we wish you both the best.
Thank you.